Tropical Storm Maria, a Japan threat on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 8th. Around the world we still have several tropical cyclones active, not least Tropical Storm Debby, which is just about to limp ashore the coast of South Carolina, it looks like, and it is still a significant tropical storm with winds of between 50 and 60 miles per hour we expect. A recon plane is heading into there once again this evening. Day 69 of Atlantic hurricane season, and of course we've got Debby, which is going to be moving inland gradually, of course still a big flooding threat, and a 20% area of interest that we've now designated over the central Atlantic. Could it be yet another one for the Atlantic Ocean? Maybe. Day 86 in the Eastern Pacific, and Daniel is dead. Carlotta is pretty much dead as well. Fabio is on its way out too, getting sucked into Amelia's influence, and a 20% area of interest that could briefly spin up well out towards the east there near Central America. In the Western Pacific we've got Maria, which could strengthen quite a bit more, expected to become a typhoon now, could affect the coast of Japan, and two areas of interest behind it. It's going to be difficult to predict how that's going to happen, but I think there's a fair chance that at least one of them will form. In the North Indian Ocean there's no areas of interest, but there's quite a bit of cloud cover still. Two banks of it there, one over central India, the other over the Bay of Bengal. And in the southwest Indian Ocean, for what it's worth, of course the season is still, well, we think quite far away, although there's 1 or 2 weak signals for potential activity next week actually, but as of right now it is quiet with no areas of interest. So let's take a look at Debby then. It is currently 40 kilometers from Cape Island, 68 from Charleston, 120 from Myrtle Beach, 211 from Wilmington, and 226 from Columbia. Tropical storm warning extending as far as Surf City, North Carolina, and a tropical storm watch as far as Beaufort Inlet. Current expected wind speeds, or estimated wind speeds, are probably near 60 miles per hour. It was earlier, although recon when they were exiting the storm in their earlier pass found that it was possibly weakening slightly, although a new pass is coming in there shortly, so we may get some more info. Now this is Maria, gale advisory in effect for the Ogasawara Islands, which it's right next to right now. 163 kilometers from Hajime Reto, 172 from Ogasawara itself, 567 from Torishima, a tiny island further north, 777 from Iogashima, which is closer towards Tokyo, which is 1,099 kilometers away from Maria. Expected to intensify, and we know that name has a history in multiple basins. Well, let's check satellite imagery then, first of all looking at Debby, and here it is, quite decent looking actually. More convection I would say than it had yesterday, especially on the inland side, so producing quite a bit more there in those latest frames closer towards the centre of the storm, so certainly it doesn't look like it's weakening very much, and if anything it may well still be strengthening slightly, at any rate increasing on that rain rate. And that will be predominantly north of the storm's centre, so that's pretty much along the border between South and North Carolina. Certainly getting lots of rainfall in that area, and radar has been showing that as well. South and eastern side really very much bereft of any real activity over those sides, of course still the strong winds, and you can see it's still swirling around there with those orange bands. Yeah, getting quite a bit stronger actually in those latest frames thanks to that convective blow up, producing very heavy rain in parts of northern South Carolina, southern North Carolina. Here's the two systems that are really getting tangled up in the Eastern Pacific now. Fabio is going to succumb to Amelia's influence, and it's really a very messy one, isn't it, as we watch this satellite imagery. It will be Amelia that comes out on top, although how much of it will be left, well, I'm not so sure. We look at this water vapor imagery, it's been losing that convection as well. No sign of Fabio at all on the upper levels there. And this is Maria, of course, moving northeastwards. It's at least 50 miles per hour already, but potentially even more according to satellite imagery estimates. There it is right now, looking like it's getting somewhat of a core, although it still needs to do a lot of work on that northern side. It is still slightly elongated there from east to west, but certainly producing huge amounts of convection on the southern side, affecting Iwo Jima and the Ogasawara Islands. No doubt they'll be getting some strong winds there as well. Cloud tops there into the -80s at times as well on the innermost areas there, and it will gradually start turning further towards the north and probably speed up as it does so. Here's another little swirly thing, that's Invest 91W. Hardly anything of that, that's just to the south of Okinawa right now. I don't think that's going to be a system in the future. So here's a look off the east coast of the United States, and you can see a big front band extending from Debby's influence now, so all across Atlantic Canada, big bulk of cloud offshore. Here's the Caribbean region. There was that area of interest that's moving into Central America, Nicaragua, and this is the African region moving out over the eastern Atlantic. Well, there's not very much at the moment, but a massive burst of cloud there over Africa could be our next tropical wave. Another look at that system moving over Central America now. It had a small chance, it's got a little bit of rotation, some decent convection producing quite a bit of rain there, and this is further out to sea. Those 4 systems, what's left of them, you can actually still see Daniel in the middle there, what's left of it, and Carlotta, but they're both ghosts. And we've got Fabio, which is very nearly a ghost as well, and of course Emilia, the last one standing. Maria moving northeasterly there, and you get an idea of its scale. A big burst of cloud on the south of it as well, and this is the North Indian Ocean region, the Indochina region. It's actually a little bit tame compared to what it's been in recent weeks, and off the west coast of India as well, ramping down a little bit there too. Fairly calm today, but still quite a bit of rain over central India. Sea surface temperatures are decent off the coast of Mexico and Central America into the eastern Pacific, up to 32 degrees Celsius in some spots, and very warm waters extending out over the ocean. In the Gulf of Mexico, extremely warm waters up to 32 degrees Celsius, and most of it above 30. Where Debby is, temperatures are around 28, maybe 27 even. Temperatures a little bit cool there. And in the Western Pacific, extremely warm over large parts of the ocean, including where Maria is. It's actually close to 30 degrees for the storm right now. It will only slowly decline over the next few days. Bay of Bengal looking decent, up to 29 degrees Celsius in a few spots there, mainly in the western Bay of Bengal, and 1 or 2 little spots in the northern Arabian Sea. Compared to average, the Atlantic is well and truly above, of course. The Eastern Atlantic as well, up to 3 degrees above average. Gulf of Mexico, 2 to 3 degrees. Western Atlantic, only a little bit above average now, actually. It's moderating a bit, and off Atlantic Canada, extremely warm. Eastern Pacific looking decent, 2 to 3 degrees above average in places, and in the Western Pacific, extremely warm around Japan, which will obviously favour Tropical Storm Maria. Oceanic heat content is still very high in the Western Pacific, although maybe slightly more fractured than it used to be. Not too much of it for Maria though, so it won't benefit very much from that. Eastern Pacific, a few little spots to here and there as well, but really not very much. In the Atlantic, of course, there's still a wide area of expansive energy there across the whole Caribbean region, and a few spots there as well in the Gulf of Mexico, the Loop Current in particular, and up the Gulf Stream off the US East Coast. There's a fair bit of energy there too. So let's check the computer models. This is the GFS for the next 5 days. We're looking at Debby moving inland there over the Carolinas and off through the mid-Atlantic, producing some strong winds as it turns post-tropical, moving through the Canadian Maritimes. And then look at this little thing, a new system forming towards the end of that run there, which we'll look at more in a moment. But this is Debby shooting up northeastwards. There it is, affecting Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and then out over the North Atlantic. It's vaguely still traceable by the time it gets closer to Europe. Now this is the Eastern Pacific. You can see that brief system down there towards the bottom right. The ECMWF also has a little thing going on over there, so I wouldn't rule out a quick formation and its remnants surviving for quite a bit, maybe even redeveloping later on. Emilia and Fabio, that carry on, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's going to be much weakened by this, and it won't last very much longer as sea surface temperatures are taking a tumble. So we should be down to 0 named storms in the Eastern Pacific active in a few days. And here's the Western Pacific then. It's a big question mark on what happens with Maria. Is there going to be a stalling mechanism in the steering? Will it be pushing Maria into Japan in a rare eastern Honshu landfall? Only a couple of storms have ever done that, one of them being Lion Rock in 2016. Well, there is a potential scenario of a powerful typhoon sweeping in and straight over Tokyo. Well, checking the rainfall expectations, if that scenario was to happen, the official forecast still calls for it to move further north, but it could curve into northern Honshu towards the end, JTWC suggesting that. But looking at the rainfall, if the GFS turns out to be correct, and calling for quite a strong landfall as well, with a pressure down to the 960s, well, there it is, up to 11 inches of rain possible for the Tokyo metro. Huge population, as we know, in Tokyo, one of the largest in the world, up to 300 millimeters of rain for that whole region, and up along the coast, plenty of areas up and above 50 millimeters. Now, here's this little beast then in the Atlantic. Could it be another US landfall? In a way, it is a hurricane landfall in Puerto Rico there and up towards the Bahamas, and continuing to recurve towards the very end of that run. Very tiny system. Hurricane landfall on Guadeloupe, through Puerto Rico, hugging the coast of the Dominican Republic, through Turks and Caicos and into the Bahamas. Will it happen? Still big question marks over this one. Other models aren't so keen. Western Pacific, a big mess really starting to take shape there. A gyric region producing potentially 3 storms if you believe the GFS there, maybe even more than that. One of them quickly going into Shikoku, another one forming towards the end there, a larger system to the southeast of Okinawa, and then a third system that ends up forming off the northwestern Philippine Islands of northwestern Luzon, and then moving on towards Hong Kong, Macau, and into China. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all of our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And of course, I'll still wait for Hone t-shirt. Despite all that activity, there is still no sign of Hone. Could it get any sillier? Well, in the silly range, the Atlantic might be trying to prove that. Well, actually, the answer is not. The storm is quite innocuous after that, moving off the coast and out over the western Atlantic, dies off without any incident way up further north. Of course, it is a very long way out. There could be massive changes if this system even forms at all. We're giving it currently a 20% chance. And off it goes. And in the Western Pacific, well, this is actually quite silly. A strong typhoon developing in the East China Sea there, just off Kyushu, and it goes and slams through the southern part of Kyushu. Pressure 937 millibars through there, then eastwards, and then it hooks northwards, and it's another typhoon hitting Tokyo at the very end of that run. It is day 16. It's such a long way out, so we really can't say that that's going to happen at all yet. But that would be really pretty ridiculous to have 2 significant typhoons affecting the Tokyo metro within a week. Well, on this day, it was a completely different set of circumstances, and the big beast that was Hurricane Allen on August 8th, 1980, just coming off its second Category 5 peak and possibly its strongest, just past the tip of the northern Yucatan Peninsula. We also had Tropical Storm Lex, which was dying off near Japan, Marge, which was just starting up near the Marshall Islands, and Tropical Storm Isis in the Eastern Pacific. This was on this day in 1980. Well, Alan, what a beast that storm was, of course, and still analysis debates to this day on that one as well. Well, back to today then. The next name in the Atlantic is Ernesto. In the Eastern Pacific it's Gilma, and in the Central Pacific it is Hone. 33 storms so far this year. We are code orange once again briefly for Debbie's last, hopefully, landfall. In the Western Pacific, the next name now is Somtin. In the North Indian Ocean, it will be Asna. And if the Southern Hemisphere decides it might wake up, it hasn't gone unnoticed. There could be one or two little signs in the Southwest Indian Ocean, but we'll see. The Australian region, the next name is Robin. Southwest Indian Ocean will start with Honshu when the season begins. And in the South Pacific, the next name is Pitta. That's it from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow. Become an ultimate fan today.